Hello and welcome to another episode of Success to Significance. As you see, family, today I am back in the studio. I thank God for the progress that we're experiencing. My shelves came in yesterday, so we're getting ready to put those up. And the channel is just growing and growing. And I couldn't do it without you guys. So I really appreciate all of your support, all of your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that is near and dear to me, and that is education around the world. If you've been following me, you know that I have traveled to all 7 continents, about 60 countries in total so far. And we're counting. We still have some places that we're going. I'm really excited about that. So, what was really interesting to me was the different educational systems, what I have observed when traveling. So, for instance, in Central South America, I noticed that they were really big on uniforms. And I like that idea because it keeps you focused. You're not really worried about what people are wearing. Everybody's wearing the same thing. You're there to learn. So there's no distraction. So I thought that was really interesting. Also, in South America, they have a very big affinity for the English language. So they bring in tutors to teach the children how to speak English. And I thought that was really interesting because English is not the most widely spoken language in the world. The most prevalent language in the world is Mandarin. So I thought it was really interesting to know that people have an affinity and want to learn the English language. My travels in Africa were really interesting as far as their educational system because sometimes they have to walk miles to get to and from school. And it was really interesting because at one country in particular, they did not have like school lunches. So what would happen is the children would go to school in the morning and then go walk a mile or so home to eat lunch and then walk back a mile or so to go back to do the afternoon study and then walk back home. So they were doing like 4 miles a day. But, it was really interesting to see how they valued their education. My travels in Europe, what I did notice there was the kids actually learned how to speak many different languages at an early age. It wasn't uncommon for a young person to be able to speak 4 and 5 languages. And that's because the countries are so close in proximity and they often go from country to country. So you need to be able to communicate. So I thought that was very, very interesting. My travels in Asia, what I notice is that they don't seem to rest from school. They go to school Monday through Sunday and they do not stop. They're really focused on getting a solid education. They don't have a lot of breaks like we have in the States. What I noticed from my travel in Australia, as far as the school system, was that their levels of education were different than that of the States. So, for instance, their primary school was from K to 6, and then they went for secondary school was 7 to 10. So, actually, their college and really, higher education was the 11th and the 12th grade. So they were pretty much college educated in the 12th grade. And if you want to go to school after that, you can do that. That's not a problem. Or you can learn a trade. But by the time you're in the 12th grade, you're pretty well educated, which I thought that was really fascinating. My time in Antarctica, there were no schools there. They don't have people living there year round. So what they do have though are scientific buildings. So if you're majoring in say microbiology or something of that sort, you may from any of the other continents, you may find yourself studying in Antarctica for a certain amount of time because it's so cold there. You really can't live there year in, year out. But that was my take on the educational system around the world. But what made me really want to tackle this subject was that I was looking up my personal education experience in the United States. And I noticed that in the 70s, when I went to school, the United States was ranked number 5. And family, today, this is 2025. Can you believe that we're ranked in the 40s right now? I think the last I read, we were like 44. That is crazy to me. So I just wanted to give a few tips that I have used over the years, and maybe it's something that can help you. I just wrote some things that were generally dealing with third graders. I want to implore you, to encourage you, that if you have an 8-year-old in your life, these are the things that I want you to make sure they know by the time they're in the 3rd grade. And we're going to do this together. I know they're doing a lot of things with the Department of Education here in the U.S., but it's nothing stopping our parents from getting fully involved. We have to take the reins back, and we have to make sure that we are educating our children. Those foundational years are very important. So there's just a few things that I want you, my family, to know that I want you to be able to do. Your 8-year-olds need to be able to do these few things. And I think as we learn and we go, we're going to get back to number 1. That's what the goal is. Number 1, please, family, make sure that your 8-year-olds know how to read an analog clock. It's so important. I can't tell you how many kids that I've come across, because I still wear an analog watch. And I would say, oh, what time it is? What time is it? And they have no idea. They want to go to the phone and look. No, we're not doing that. Make sure that your kids can learn to read an analog clock, because once they start traveling around the world, believe it or not, they still use the analog clock. So you want to train your kids to be able to do that. And if you don't have an analog clock in your home, go out and buy one. And for practice, you can do old school, like what I did when my kids were young. Get a cup, any cup, and just trace the circle around. Put it on a piece of paper and just let your kids practice. Put the longhand, the shorthand at different times, and just make sure they know how to do it. That would be a great assignment and something that would train them to read an analog clock. Number 2, Roman numerals. I don't know if they still do that in school, but you need to let your kids know what are Roman numerals and how to calculate them. If you don't know yourself, you can look it up. And I would say, because like, again, if they're going to travel around the world, especially in Europe, they still use Roman numerals, and you need to know how to read them. Also, cursive writing. Penmanship is so very important. I know everything is done on the computer, but please know our founding documents in the United States are written in script. So they need to know how to read it, how to write it, and it would just make them better stewards of our country. Another thing, get a dictionary. Everybody should have a dictionary, and if you really want to be on it, get a thesaurus as well. Have a dictionary in your home so that they can look up words. If your phone goes down, you're not going to have accessibility to it. So why not learn how to use a dictionary? Another thing, every 8-year-old in your home or that you're associated with should have a library card and use it. Go to the library, take out books, read to them, let them read to you. I know we're busy, we have to work, we have other things that we're doing, but you have to make it a priority. Reading is definitely fundamental. You remember that back when we were kids. Also, index cards. This is a trick that I used over the years with my kids. You can get a whole pack of them from the dollar store. And let me tell you, I would write words on it, age appropriate words, and I would just let them practice when I was doing their hair or when they were folding clothes or separating socks or something like that. I would tape the index cards to the closet and I would let them read it. And let me tell you, they were so good in vocabulary. It was amazing. So those are the ground rules that you can do. So they can stand out for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. Also, plan a monthly field trip. That was always a big thing to me. It might be the trip to the library. That could be a field trip. Or you can go to a museum. Or you can go just outside just to explore what's going on in the neighborhood. Reading the traffic, the signs, knowing where they live. Family, this was years ago. I'll tell you the quick story. I was outside and it was I believe the little girl was 8. She was lost and she did not know her address. I couldn't believe it. So thank God she ran into me. So she was crying because she got lost. She was riding her bike and she got lost in the neighborhood. She could not tell me where she lived, but she did know her phone number. I called the mother and then the mother, we got her home. But that story could have went left really fast if she would have got in the wrong hands. But make sure that your kids know their address. They know how to navigate. And that brings me to the next thing of map skills. I know that might be an antiquated thing because again, you can look up a lot of these things on your phone, but it is really good for your children to know how to read a map, how to know the top, the bottom, what we used to call longitude, latitude, the equator. Those things are important, especially if you want to be a world traveler. Those are things that you definitely want to know. Also in the dollar store, you can buy flashcards. Those things are really good to have because instead of just being on your phone, you can just quiz your kids and you can set it up where they can also get a reward at the end if you want to do that. Also, if you buy one of these notebooks, they still have them. They have the multiplication table. That's another thing that I want your 8-year-old or less to know how to do. All the multiplication, I want them to know the entire multiplication table from 1 to 12. They should be able to count to 12 using every number up to 12 by the time they're 8 years old. I think it's really important. You can quiz them. You can, even when you're driving in the car, you can ask them, what's the 7 times tables? What's the 9 times tables? Yeah, again, like I say, you can look it up on your phone, but it's nothing like knowing it in your brain, training your brain to know these things. So those are just a few of my tips. I have so many more that I can go on to say, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really thank you for tuning in. I hope that this helps. I hope that your 3rd grader will be a master in their own destiny with your help. So I'm praying for you. I love you and I thank you for your time and attention. Take care. Bye.